How's it going, guys? Laughing Man here. Okay, so for no real reason on my own, I went to see Death Wish over the weekend. I say that because, oh my god, has this movie been getting bent over backwards and getting a paddling.
That's a paddling.
With the recent tragedy in Parkland, Florida, the media has chosen this movie to be their whipping boy because it dared feature guns at a time when firearms are a hot topic in the country. I felt compelled to see this movie because I saw all the hate it was getting and wanted to see it for myself. Well, I saw it, and I gotta say, it was pretty forgettable. It's your standard vigilante flick, which is funny since the original Death Wish essentially kickstarted the genre. But you have the familiar tropes here: guy's family dies, murderers get away scot-free, the police can't do anything about it because there's little to no evidence, so the guy takes it upon himself to avenge his family. Pretty standard, right? You've seen it before with The Punisher. The concept was explored with as much depth as it'll ever need in the Dark Knight trilogy, so why the fuck is it getting such bad reviews? To get an idea, I went over to Rotten Tomatoes, where I immediately noticed a significant disparity between how the critics felt about the movie and how the audience felt about it. Yeah, there's definitely something rotten here. What did the critics see that apparently the audience missed? Glancing over the blurbs, you can sort of pick out a running theme. One review in particular, when the author finally stops getting high off the smell of his own farts, lays it down thusly.
And right there's the fantasy that a lone honest man with a gun will make the world safer and restore order. Will save us from them, rather than just unleash more violence and death.
It's bad luck, really, that this movie, which was supposed to come out last November, was delayed until March 2nd, a little over 2 weeks after the Parkland shooting. So these critics take umbrage, seemingly, that this movie features a gun-toting vigilante as its hero, when clearly the Parkland shooting proves that guns only serve to unleash more violence and death. With all of that in mind, I left the theater with a completely opposite reaction. Let me explain. Consider this line from main character Paul Kersey's father-in-law. People rely on the police to keep them safe. That's the problem. Then consider this excerpt taken from a CNN news story regarding the Parkland shooting. When Coral Springs police officers arrived at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on February 14th, in the midst of the school shooting crisis, many officers were surprised to find not only that Broward County Sheriff's Deputy Scott Peterson, the armed school resource officer, had not entered the building, but that 3 other Broward County Sheriff's deputies were also outside the school and had not entered, Coral Springs sources tell CNN. The deputies had their pistols drawn and were behind their vehicles, the sources said, and not one of them had gone into the school. So there are the Broward County Police, 3 of them no less, plus a school security officer, sitting idly by while kids are being shot. Consider the quote from the movie again. People rely on the police to keep them safe. That's the problem. Now take the preceding 2 sentences and put them in the Second Amendment framework that critics are housing this movie in. And you can see why some form of self-defense might be a good idea? Of course, all this is beside the point because the director, Eli Roth, stated directly that the movie is not pro-gun. But let's pretend like it is anyway. So unfortunately for the kids in Parkland, they did not have the means of protecting themselves from a gun-touting maniac, nor apparently did they have the protection of law enforcement until it was too late. And this is, I think, the main thrust of the movie, since it was released in March 2018 and not November 2017, that when those that we depend on, in this case the police, to keep us safe fail us, what means do we have as individuals to pick up the slack? For most of us, it's buying a gun and keeping it stored until, God forbid, we're compelled to use it in self-defense. For Paul Kersey, it meant buying a gun and taking the law into his own hands. That's not to say that what he did was right, but nor is it to say that Death Wish is glorifying the same sort of violence that was enacted on February 14th, when an asshole took 17 innocent human lives. Paul Kersey killed the guilty, a pair of carjackers, a neighborhood thug named the Ice Cream Man who shot a kid in the leg, and the men responsible for the slaying of his wife and for putting his daughter into a coma. As an audience member, I sympathized with Paul because of the circumstances, and so too did the detective, played by Breaking Bad's Dean Norris, who spent the latter half of the movie hunting the so-called Grim Reaper, but who, when confronted with the opportunity to arrest Paul, let him walk free. These are a lot of words spent reviewing a movie that, again, was pretty average. But when you have so many critics shitting on it, I just wanted to form my own opinion and see it for myself, and at least from what I can see at Rotten Tomatoes, it seems a lot of people are doing just that. Was there bad timing here? Yes, but I would say it was more unfortunate timing, as MGM of course did not mean for this movie to come out so soon after such a horrible tragedy. But do I think the movie should be crucified based on externalities? Events that occurred outside of its 107 minutes? I think that's a bit unfair. Judge it based on its own merits, not on how soon it released after a piece of shit shot up a school.
This guy in the hoodie, they're calling the Grim Reaper.
Is he right for taking the law into his own hands?
He's become a folk hero.
You look much better. Whatever you're doing, keep it up.
I will.
Death Wish. Rated R. In theaters March 2nd.